Welcome to Dashing Dish. Today we're celebrating the most important women in our lives, moms. Today's celebratory menu includes bacon asparagus quiche with a light custard egg filling that is perfect for brunch or any time of day. Why not prep the day before with a peanut butter banana French toast bake that will please any picky palate? You would never guess these rich, creamy lemon cheesecake bars are low carb and sugar-free and healthy enough for brunch, but also delicious enough for dessert, clean-eating strawberry scones. Today we're celebrating moms with a special brunch menu coming up. Today's show is about my absolute favorite women in my life, my mom and my little girl that made me a mom, Maddie. And what I love so much about celebrating moms is that it just reminds me of life. I just think about the thing that brings me the most life, and that is being a mom and also being around my mom. So today we're going to use some really fresh ingredients and celebrate moms. So I thought, why not start with some really bright green asparagus and also some delicious cheese, bacon, eggs, and celebrate the day with a crustless quiche. So we're gonna make an asparagus bacon crustless quiche, and we're just gonna start with 8 eggs that we're gonna crack into a bowl. And when I first made a quiche, I didn't really know what the difference was between a quiche and an omelet or just scrambled eggs. Basically, what makes it a quiche is 2 things. First of all, it's a custardy filling. So what makes it custardy is adding a milk component. So we have 1 cup of milk that we're gonna add to these eggs, and it makes the eggs really fluffy, almost like a pie filling. And the second thing that makes it like a quiche is the fact that typically it's made in a pie pan with a pie crust. Now we're gonna do this one crustless, but if you wanted to add the crust, you could either buy a store-bought crust and just add this filling to it, or you can make your own crust using almond flour. And that's typically what I do when I'm making a crust, is I just use almond flour. So I'm gonna add to the eggs 1 cup of almond milk, but you could use any kind of milk that you like. And then I'm gonna do a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then pepper to taste. So if you wanted to make this for little kids, you could leave the pepper out. Then I'm gonna give this a good whisk and make sure I get all of those eggs broken up. And when I think about my mom, I think about my very best friend in the world, and that's what I really pray that Maddie and I develop as far as a relationship as well, because there's nothing quite like having your mom as your best friend. So I added 1 cup of cheese. I used cheddar, but you could use any kind of cheese that you like. Swiss would be good in this. Any type of cheese that has a lot of flavor. Okay, so now I have 1 bunch of asparagus from the grocery store, and all you want to do to figure out where to cut asparagus is you just want to gently kind of guide it to the end and see where it naturally breaks. And it will naturally break at the part that's the most tough. And usually it's a kind of a rough guide for all the same pieces, and you just want to take one of the longer pieces and cut it along that line. So we're gonna cut it right about here, and you wanna just get rid of these ends. And then I'm gonna cut it into, I'd say 1/2 to 1/4 inch pieces. And then I'm gonna put the asparagus that's chopped into the bottom of a 9-inch pie pan that I just sprayed with cooking spray. You just want to kind of spread it out like that. Quiche is kind of interesting because you almost make it in reverse. You don't want to put your eggs in and then just beat it all together, because the things at the bottom are going to kind of bake and rise to the top. Okay, now I'm going to add my bacon, and I just cooked my bacon on a sheet pan, 350 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's nice and crisp. So I used just 8 pieces of bacon, just enough to cover the bottom of a pie pan. Then I'm gonna go ahead and pour my egg mixture over the bacon and asparagus. And if you don't like bacon or you don't like asparagus, You can use any kind of meat that you like or any kind of veggies that you like. You could even make it vegetarian by leaving the bacon out altogether. Now I'm just gonna kind of spread the cheese out just to make sure that it's even in there. Now I'm gonna put this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. If you wanna get the top a little more golden brown, you could turn the heat up in the last 10 minutes or so, and it'll form a nice brown crust. Coming up next, Maddie and Sean are gonna be joining me in the kitchen to make a French toast bake that Sean thinks reminds him of his mom. Well, I have my Maddie girl here with me today, as well as my husband Sean, and we're gonna be making a banana peanut butter French toast bake. Ooh. I love this because you can make it the night before and serve it to guests or your family the next morning. It's the perfect brunch meal. So Maddie, I'm gonna have you
Can you help me, Maddie?
break up some of this bread, and you can cut the bread with a knife or you can just tear it, and that's easy enough. You just want one loaf of multi-grain bread or whatever bread you like. I like sprouted bread because it's a little bit more nutritious, and you can just act like you're feeding the ducks with your little kids, throwing it into a baking pan that we have sprayed with cooking spray there. I'm gonna make the kind of custard base to this, which is 8 eggs. Anytime I use 8 eggs or a lot of whole eggs, you could swap some out with egg whites as well for a little bit lower calorie content. But the yolks is really where a lot of the nutrition is, and it makes it really rich in flavor. So this is a peanut butter banana French toast. So I know that's one that my little girl Maddie would love as well, right? Maddie, you love bananas and peanut butter.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, so Sean, tell me a little bit about your mom and just some memories that you had of her growing up.
Well, my mom was the type of mom that would make all 3 boys 3 separate meals, even maybe my dad a separate meal as well. So that's, I feel like, how I got to be so picky.
She loved to cook. So she was always making separate things because it was her love language.
But one of the things I remember is that she would make French toast, and it wasn't anything fancy, but it was just so, so homey, so good, so delicious that she would make the biggest batches. I mean, we would have 3 boys, obviously, in our family, so she'd pile them up so high and put them in the fridge, and they'd be gone within a couple days. But yeah, it was just really good French toast. There wasn't too much to it.
Yep, that's when I remember dating Sean when we were 15 and 16. I would go to his house, and I felt like his mom was always cooking, and she was always making French toast. So to the eggs, I added 1 cup of milk and a 1/2 cup of peanut butter that I softened in the microwave just so it's easier to mix. And then about a 1/4 cup of sweetener of choice, and then a 1/2 cup of maple syrup. And that adds a lot of sweetness, so really with the bananas and the maple syrup and the sweetener, you don't need to even add syrup to this French toast bake. It has it all baked in. Then 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm gonna just whisk this all together. Sean, when you guys are done with the bread.
Do you want all this in there?
Yep, just the whole thing of bread, whole loaf. When you're done with the bread, you can cut up those 2 bananas. You wanna use 2 ripe bananas so that they have the sweet flavor that tastes so good. That looks so good, Maddie.
You're doing so good, honey.
Okay, those look great. Now, you can hand me the knife and you can throw those in.
Top dress it like that?
Yep, you can kind of just toss them. And I'm gonna pour the egg mixture on top. Okay, now we're gonna top it with some aluminum foil. And this will go into the oven, 350 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes covered. And like I said, if you want to make this the night before, you can just leave it in your fridge and then bake it in the morning. It's the perfect way to start a day, and it's also a wonderful thing to make with those that make you a mommy if you're a mom. Coming up next, these clean-eating lemon cheesecake bars are grain and gluten-free, and yet they have a combination of tangy lemon and rich cheesecake that is hard to beat. here in the kitchen joining me to celebrate moms. And Mom, I was just sharing how you are not only a really good parent, but you also are my best friend.
Aww,
and that's, I think, the best combination, when you feel like you can call your mom up and say, hey, I need advice, or to pray with you about anything, or, you know, you were always there in the hard times too, with a loving correction, but always pointing us back to God. And so that's what I love about you. That's what makes you a really good mom.
Thanks.
And when I think about you, I think about a few things, but I definitely think of lemon bars. When we were growing up, my mom would make lemon bars homemade, and this was like our childhood favorite. So I thought, what about combining cheesecake and lemon bars to make lemon cheesecake bars? Doesn't that sound good?
My two favorites.
I thought you'd like that. And they have an almond flour shortbread crust, which I know you also love. So that's what I'm gonna have you start with, is the crust. I have 2 cups of almond flour here, 2 eggs, a 1/4 cup of sweetener, a 1/4 cup of applesauce, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. That's it for the crust. So you can add all that to the bowl and get it so that it's like a wet sand consistency.
Hey, sounds great.
I'm gonna start with the filling. I have 1 ounce package of softened cream cheese. You can use Greek yogurt or low-fat cream cheese if you like, just not fat-free, ever. When you're gonna do a cheesecake, you cannot do fat-free, so a 1/3 less fat is definitely fine. And then I have 2 cups of Greek yogurt here. And that's what makes these a little bit lighter, is you do have some real cream cheese, but you also have some Greek yogurt, which cuts down calories and also adds some protein. Then I have 3 eggs and a 1/2 cup of sweetener. So Mom, when I think about you and your mom, I don't know a whole lot about your mom because she unfortunately went to heaven before we were even born. But I know that you had a really special relationship with her because you were a special gift to her, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, you were 9 months old when my mom went to heaven, and yeah, she was a really special lady. And what I loved about my mom, I think what I remember most was that she, number 1, loved the Lord. Number 2, that she was the most generous woman that I knew, and to this day, one of the most generous women in my life.
You must have got that from her then.
Aw, thanks, Kate.
And I know too, your sisters are a really big part of your childhood and really were like mom figures to you.
Absolutely. Well, my mom was 42 when she had me. So I remember a lot of my growing up years actually with my sisters, and my oldest sister, Jerry, I spent every summer with her and her kids, so that was a lot of fun. So your cousins, which are my nieces and nephews, are not that much younger than me. We were pretty close in age. I remember when I was 14 babysitting my 10-year-old nephew, and that did not go well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I love it because, you know, I say to my oldest sister, I am who I am today because of you. So I was celebrating her on Mother's Day, and of course, my other sister, Aunt Lori, your Aunt Lori is in heaven now, but she was another role model in my life as well.
Yeah, and when I think about just moms in general, it makes me realize that it's not just our biological moms, oftentimes, that is like a mom to us. It can be really anyone who was a mom figure to us and kind of mothered us through a stage or a season of life. And it can be a spiritual mom, it can be anyone who's like a mom mentor to you. I have a few of those that really help guide me as a mom, and I think that's so important because as a mom, we have a lot of decisions to make that are important. And so it's really nice to have women that you can call on with more experience than you, that you can just say, hey, what's your advice on this? Because being a mom doesn't come with a manual.
No.
So you have to kind of figure it out, and it's easier to do if you have someone with you. Mom, I'm gonna have you put that crust, press it into an 8-inch baking dish, and I added a full lemon to this, and what I did is I just squeezed it. You want to squeeze it upside down. It prevents getting some seeds in there. If you do, you just pick them out like I did. And then I also zested the lemon, so if you can get some of the zest off, that adds a lot of really bright lemon flavor. And then I'm just gonna give this a nice whisk with this beater here, just till it's smooth and creamy. Okay, so that looks great. You want to get it so that all, if not most, of the clumps are out. So Mom, that crust looks great. You want to make sure that it's kind of pressed in evenly. Now, actually, I do in my recipe say that you can bake this ahead of time if you want it to be more of a sort of crisp crust. If you don't mind it kind of all just melting together, it tastes delicious either way. You can just bake it all at once. So it's kind of up to you. If you want to bake it ahead of time so it's more like a pie crust, you can bake it for about 15 minutes while you're making the filling. But we're going to bake it all together. It'll taste delicious. I'm going to go ahead and put the filling on there. And if you soften the cream cheese, that really helps the filling to be as smooth as possible. Mom, this looks really good.
It does look good.
So we're gonna bake this at 350 degrees for 40 minutes, and then we're gonna let it chill in the fridge for 4 hours. The essence of motherhood is caring and nurturing. So there would be no better way than to ease the burden by learning and preparing a family recipe for your mom or mother figure in your life. When I first stepped into motherhood, I would start my day to a baby crying, and then quickly it would become 10 o'clock and then lunchtime, and I would be lucky if I even fit in a shower in that morning. So I convinced myself, well, I'll spend time with God during Maddie's nap time or even later in the evening. My days would whiz on by and I just didn't seem to make time to be quiet with the Lord. And so a few weeks into motherhood, I went to a Bible study and I was talking with all my other mom friends, and I realized that they had the same problem. We were all agreeing that although we really try to spend time with God, all the demands of being a mom, a wife, and running a home make it hard to get really quiet. And so we were actually studying out John 15 during this Bible study. And that was when we all realized that apart from God, we really can't do anything well. And we have to make the time with God a priority. When I was driving home from that Bible study that night, I told the Lord, no matter what it takes, I'm going to start making quality time and quiet time with you a priority every day. And so I set my alarm a little bit earlier, and I went to bed a little bit earlier the night before, and I had an hour of quiet time before Maddie would even wake up. Now, yes, it was early and it wasn't easy at first, but I got used to it, my body adjusted, and what I realized is that when I made God the very first priority in the first part of my day, it made everything else that I do more successful because I had the grace and the strength from God to carry me through each day. Coming up next, these clean eating strawberry scones are everything you want in a scone without the butter, flour, or sugar. They are healthy enough for breakfast, yet delicious enough for dessert. A really special way to celebrate moms and brunch is with a strawberry scone. So today we're going to make strawberry scones with a little bit of protein added. So not only are they delicious, but also satisfying, and they keep you satisfied. So Mom, I'm going to have you add to the bowl some oat flour here. We have 2 1/4 cup of oat flour. So you can go ahead and add that.
All right.
And then a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and I'll do a tablespoon of baking powder. And that helps them rise and puff, really puffy how you want scones. Then a cup of sweetener and a 1/2 cup of protein powder. Any kind of protein powder will do. If you don't have protein powder and you wanted to do a half cup of almond flour as well, you could just simply swap that out. And then, Mom, for the wet ingredients, I have half cup of yogurt, half cup of applesauce, 1 egg, and a half teaspoon of salt. So you can go ahead and add that to the bowl and mix it just until it starts to form almost a dough.
Okay.
And then what is gonna make these strawberry scones? Of course, we have strawberries. So I have about a cup of strawberries here that I'm gonna slice and dice pretty fine so that they aren't in huge chunks in your scone. So we're gonna add the strawberries, and you can go ahead and kind of just fold them in gently so that we're not breaking them up too much.
Okay. It already looks good, and they're not even baked yet. That's how much I love strawberries.
Mom, I know that we discussed you being a mom, but how special is it now that you get to be a grandma and you get to watch us be moms?
Oh my gosh, well, you know, when all my friends started having grandkids and they told me how great it was, until you have a grandchild of your own, you can't even imagine. But I think what I love is seeing my children in your children. I mean, Maddie is the spitting image of you. You know, it's really cool that I get to relive your childhood as well as your sisters.
It's true.
So fun.
It's true. It's such an awesome thing to be able to hear from my mom. Oh my gosh, she is exactly like you when you were that age. So it's really a neat experience. So Mom, those look perfect.
Good.
You don't want to overdo it or else it'll become really tough, just like regular flour. And so we're gonna kind of just scoop this onto a piece of parchment paper or some tin foil lined on a pan with cooking spray. And I like parchment paper because you can guarantee it won't stick.
And what I love too is your substitution for the fats with the applesauce, because scones ordinarily have a lot of butter that makes them so flaky.
It's true, and I feel like the strawberries with all of the juice in there really adds a lot of moisture as well, so they come out really tender and really flavorful. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of just use my hands to sort of shape it into a disc here. If you find that it's a little bit too sticky and it's sticking to your hands, you can always just sprinkle some more oat flour over the top, just like you would with any other type of dough, and that just helps it to not stick. And if you wanted to add a few more strawberries on the top just so it looks pretty, I even tried it once with some chocolate chips. So you could do white chocolate chips or regular, or some almonds on top, just for a little bit of a variation of flavor. You could even do a little dusting of some sweetener on top just to make them a little bit more like authentic scones. So Mom, we're gonna put these in the oven, 350 degrees for about 25 minutes.
All right.
Just until they're set up, and then you can cut them when they're cooling into the nice diagonal triangle shapes. Well, Mom, I had the best day celebrating moms with you, and I think our brunch turned out beautiful. What do you think?
It is beautiful, but it smells delicious.
It does smell good. I think I'm gonna go for one of those strawberry scones. I might even eat the whole plate with just a whole can of whipped cream. I'm just gonna sit down with it.
You know I want one right now. Can I try it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Well, there's nothing sweeter than having you as my mom and celebrating moms today. It's been fun.
Love
Thanks
you.
for joining me. For all of these delicious recipes and more, head over to dashingdish.com, where you'll find recipes and more to nourish your body and soul.